Уважаемые коллеги, здравствуйте. Большая просьба.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Please make sure you take your seat. Unfortunately, we have a little bit of a delay. Please feel free to occupy seats around the table. Unfortunately, we have a little bit of a delay because the previous session lasted a little bit longer than it was supposed to.
Уважаемые гости, просим присесть.
Dear guests, please occupy the seats around the table.
И предлагаем начинать.
I suggest beginning.
Так. Ну, наверное, можно сказать, что мы собрались.
I guess that everybody is here. Good afternoon, dear guests.
Каждый уважаем в отдельности, уважаемы все вместе.
I want to express
Такой неинтересный.
my respect to each and every one of you. And today we are discussing the regulatory policy, and if you're sitting here, you understand what it means. It's a complicated topic, and when we were including it into the agenda of the forum, we faced a lot of apprehension because they thought that we would introduce something boring and unnecessary, but when we unfolded the agenda of our meeting, they realized how important it is to take the legal framework into the account. We explained what the business depends on, because supervision at the local, regional, and federal level is important, and it regulates relations between the business and the society. It became clear that such a platform of the International Forum, International Business Week, is the platform where such topics should be spoken about. And the importance of this topic is confirmed by our guests from different regions. And the Ministry of Economic Development and Investment Policy is one of the organizers of this platform, and they inspired this meeting. The novelties that we are going to introduce in this meeting very interesting among both entrepreneurs and public figures. That's why today we are meeting here, and I hope that we'll be able to discuss a little bit. And we're going to have some things explained because there are things that we disagree with, so that's why I suggest beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the generous Bashkir land, and I'm asking our colleagues to start the video about the Republic of Bashkortostan. You arrived in winter, that's why you didn't have that much of a chance to enjoy the nature of the Republic of Bashkortostan, but you can feel free to visit our investment Sabantui that usually takes place in May or June.
Республика
The
Башкортостан.
Republic of Bashkortostan, Europe and Asia. Endless steppes, rivers, lakes, and ancient Ural mountains.
Место силы,
It is a place of power, beauty, and harmony.
Мы республика с
We are the republic with a long and great history.
веками
We
жившей.
have been friends with Russia for centuries. Our homeland was the first autonomous republic created in the Soviet Russia, which became the first oil-producing zone in the Ural-Volga region.
Башкортостан
Bashkortostan is a synonym of progress and innovation.
крупнейший
It is the largest modern oil and gas production and petrochemical center.
республика сильной.
We are the republic with a strong economy, and we cherish our resource-rich land.
Башкортостан
Bashkortostan is a territory of power and metal industries, as well as cutting-edge technologies. We care about the environment, launch the world's best planes into the sky, and assemble helicopters. We are opening new enterprises, creating new jobs, establishing special economic zones, and best conditions for business. We are developing the infrastructure of our towns and villages, implementing the transport reform, and renewing medical and school vehicles.
столица
The
Башкортостана.
capital of the Republic of Bashkortostan is Ufa, the place where we hold major business, cultural, and sports events. Here, as well as throughout the Republic, we care of the needs of our people. Bashkortostan is not the crucial point between Europe and Asia, but also a hospitable land. We welcome our guests and make them acquainted with our history, traditions, and culture.
Курая и Куба.
We introduce them to melodies of Kumis and Kurai and treat them with honey. We arrange excellent tourism infrastructure.
Самое главное в
People are the heart of Bashkortostan. Over 4 million people live in the Republic of Bashkortostan, representing 60 nationalities. We respect all religions, we appreciate each other, and honor our land. We give the helping hand to people who need it, and we never leave our people in trouble. Bashkortostan is a trustworthy business and industrial partner. We are constantly developing our region. We take risks and win. We learn, discover the new, cherish our history. We build our future and introduce the future into today. Bashkortostan is the homeland of courageous people. We have a great future ahead.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for not introducing myself,
Публике обозначить.
and I want to know that I belong to this nature. I am the Deputy Minister of Investment Policy and Economical Development. Unfortunately, we are not hosting today Rustam Muratov, the Minister of Economic Development, Investment Policy, and First Deputy Prime Minister of the Government of the Republic of Bashkortostan, but unfortunately he has to take care of a distinguished European guest, so that's why I'm speaking today on behalf of him. Welcome to the Bashkir land. Welcome to this session. I suggest giving the floor to Alexander Shamrai, who is the moderator of our today's session. He is somebody who will define the agenda of our today's meeting. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I'm happy to see you all today. Today I have the honor to moderate this session, and I would like to express the hope that we are going to discuss a lot of interesting things. In particular, we are going to learn about the best regional practices of regulatory policies, and these policies are the purpose of our today's meeting. Before we go to the presentations and speeches, I would like to give the floor to the Director of the Department of Regulatory Policy and Assessment of Regulatory Impact of the Ministry of Economic Development of the Russian Federation, Alexander Litvak. You are having the floor, Mr. Litvak.
Hello, dear colleagues. Can you see me? Yes, we can see you. I see that you can see me. I'm glad to see you all here today. I really like the introduction of our mission.
вообще повестки, связанные с регуляторной политикой, действительно
So it represents the regulatory policy that we are trying to improve. And
назад
3 or 4 years ago, a
есть
huge trend appeared,
реформа регуляторной.
which was to
Мы уже стали больше говорить не только об оценке регулирующего воздействия, но и
we started to speak not only about the some acts, but the regulatory policy itself. So, for example, the Department of Regulatory Policy was
регуляторной политики, оценки регулирующего воздействия.
cooperated together, and
Вступительное слово действительно
this introductory speech was very useful, and I'm glad to see you all today. And this session was organized together with the Minister of Economic Development and Investment Policy, and I'm glad to see you on the International Business Week in the Republic of Bashkortostan. And I would like to express my gratitude to the government of the Republic of Bashkortostan for organizing this and for including this very important topic to the program of the forum.
реализация государственной политики. Состав участников сегодня подобный.
So the participants are impressive, and it is important to mention that these are not only the government's representatives, but also some businessmen and entrepreneurs, and I hope it will be useful. More than 10 years, the Institute of Assessment works in the region, and I would say that it is the key instrument for
В нормотворческом процессе
taking part into this regulatory policy,
решения, которые
and I believe that we can influence the decisions
позицию на
of the government.
мы еще больше усилили роль
We,
247 закона об обязательных требованиях.
due to the new act, we were able to improve our influence,
Также, значит, расширили
and we have enlarged
регулирование, обоснованность регулирования.
the principles of certainty in making decisions, and all this helps us to see the role of the regulatory policy on the regions of the Republic.
Значит, если раньше
Also cooperate. For example, if in 2014 it wasn't obligatory, now all the local governments are included in this topic. And of course, today, one of the main tasks is to exchange the experience in order to increase our operation. Today is the 16th of December, and I think we can sum up.
хотел сказать, что для регуляторной политики
And I think that to regulatory policy this year was quite productive. So the requirements are higher now, as we have
сил нового регулирования, нового
we have paid a lot of attention to the
оценивали риски,
issues and risks of businesses and made new decisions.
Также в качестве важного события
One of the main events on the federal level was
ведомственных актов, разработчиков сейчас урегулирование разногласия по замечаниям, которые отражены в заключении.
We introduced also a document that regulates the procedure for registering documents adopted by a certain organization.
Изменения, корректировки.
And in the future, we will continue improving procedures related to federal and local legal framework. Also, we are going to conduct ARI events next year, and by the end of the year, we are going to have a final meeting as well. To wrap it up, I would like to wish you a productive work and a proactive approach. I see you have a very intense agenda. Today you are going to have not one but 2 entire sessions, and these sessions is full of interesting reports. So I wish you productive work and fruitful work. I wish you a happy new year. Thank you for your attention.
Знаете, я
Thank you, Mr. Litvak. I dare to say thank you, because it's a big honor for us to have you, to see you face to face nearly. It's hard to reach out to you, and I understand how tight your schedule is. That's why I'm so grateful that you are joining us today. I would like to say thank you to Ms. Sorokina for supporting us, for your support. You are always in touch, and we really appreciate it. And you managed to build ties among the regions, and I'm really happy that you are leading this department. Thank you very much for your wishes, but your gifts are the new introductions in the legal framework, and
что ж теперь, других подарков.
let it be. These are the only gifts we can get from you. Anyway, thank you. Good luck. Thank you. Have a productive work. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Litvak. We have gifts, by the way. We will tell about them later. I would like to remind you that the key client, the key target audience of what we are going to say, I mean, the mechanism of regulatory policies and the ARI and expertise, the business is the target audience. And it's important for business to see the response from the bodies and authorities. We see that the business is the most involved in the assessment of the regulatory impact in situations where they feel appreciated, when their involvement leads to some practical outcomes, when they can see the results of their work and the work of the institute. Therefore, I would like to give the floor to Sergei Mytyankov, the Vice President of the Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs. Mr. Mytyankov, dear colleagues, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Yeah, we can hear you but can't see you. Now we can see you. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to see you today and be invited, at least online. Recently, I visited the Republic of Bashkortostan. We held an event just right here. We had a council of entrepreneurs. The topic of conversation was different, but nevertheless, we had Mr. Nazarov with us and other authorities, and we visited the local office. Mr. Nasibulin attended the meeting. What I want to say is that the topic of our today's meeting is business, because business is a very practical institution. They work only in fields where they find solutions for their problems. Business is facing challenges that take a very prompt decision to be solved. And the speakers mentioned the fact correctly that the situation is changing very rapidly. And it's important that ministries and managers and institutions should react promptly to these changes, and they should understand the challenges that the business faces and take this into account in their decision making. Of course, business will never be satisfied. They will always need more and want more, but over the years, over the last 2 years, we see that the quality of the work of state authorities has improved significantly. I would like to mention that nearly all the suggestions that business has made, we considered, and regions tend to adopt the relevant legal documents. And the big contribution to that is made by the Ministry of Trade and the Ministry of Economic Development and Investment Policy. So therefore, I would like to express my gratitude for your responsiveness, for hearing the business and listening to the business. I wish you a successful work and fruitful conferencing. I would like to extend my wishes And my best wishes on to you in relation with the new year celebrations. And I expect that the worst times are gone and the best is yet to come. So happy new year, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you strong health and a fruitful work at this conference. Thank you very much.
Спасибо большое, Сергей Сергеевич. Опять скажу,
Thank you, Mr. Mitinkov.
понимаю, что развитие скажет.
I understand that the moderator also has something to say, but I take the honor to interrupt. I'm really grateful for your involvement. And today we have 5 communities of entrepreneurs gathered here, and they will not disagree with your contribution to the legal framework creation. And I would like to express my gratitude, and I want you to deliver it to the federal level, because we are very happy to have public officials that are ready to understand the business and to meet the business halfway, because without authorities, without public officials, we cannot figure out what is going on. And the business is only active in the sphere where the business can feel involved and where the business can see some work, some action, some outcomes. And I'm very happy that you are trying to engage municipalities, business communities, and societies. And today we will really focus on that. We understand that business doesn't ignore, or government doesn't ignore. They just keep silence where no collaboration, no communication is needed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mitinkov. We continue. We have not only public officials and government representatives, but also entrepreneurs as well as experts. Danil Tsigankov deals in regulatory impact for a very long time, and he is the director of the Center of Regulatory Impact Assessment on the Institute of State and Municipal Governance of Higher School of Economics. And his mission is to spread the word about ARI, and he's been dealing with it since it appeared in our country. Mr. Tsigankov, can you please tell what is your perception of the regulatory policy in Russia? What did they manage to do and what they didn't? Well, maybe we can summarize a little bit the plan for the future. Hello, dear colleagues. I am speaking from the Higher School of Economics, and indeed we've gone a long way in the regulatory assessment as well, and the ARI department too. In the summer, the Ministry of Economic Development adopted one of the earliest initiatives, and this entire process was launched back in 2007. And since then, we've managed to introduce a lot of legal acts on the federal level. Since forever, this nucleus of regulation was introduced, and it's been changing. We started adding module by module to this nucleus to create a system. We introduced political measures, economic measures, and it helped us to ensure a complete toolkit to keep up with the global leaders of economic growth and budget and fiscal development. We conducted experiments, we drew a model of standard expenses, we introduced norm regulatory acts in Russia. We adopted this tool step by step. And sometimes we had to relaunch certain tools as experiments. Besides this toolkit of the regulatory policy, we had an important task. We had to spread the regulatory policy across different levels, not only national, federal level, but also at the local and regional level as well. And you know that in 2014 we introduced the Eurasian Commission, and we managed to introduce it at the regional level. This is the history of 2014. And before that, it took us 2 or 3 years to get ready. And Alexei Khersontsev still runs this process. He used to be the director of the department, and he still occupies his office. And he did his best to introduce this level at this approach at the regional level. We started introducing this approach gradually. At the initial stage, we took only 4 to 5 regions, and slowly we introduced this approach to more and more regions, such as Arkhangelsk or the Chuvash Republic. We used the help of experts, and in certain cases, we had to start early to be able to introduce the approach nationwide by the end of 2013. When we started the discussion, the first question was, what can we do and what will it bring? Well, what the outcomes will be. And at the federal level, we could expect the involvement of business associations and other government authorities. At the regional level, we could expect an ecosystem, and this ecosystem was significantly smaller. And at the federal district level, we could see the scaled approach. Also, it can get to an international scale, like involve dozens of countries. For example, such a union, a regional international union, can involve countries like Australia or even the United States. It was an enthusiastic idea, and former Soviet countries introduced an ARI system. Unfortunately, it was a rather weak project, and one of the tasks that we pursued when we were adopting this structure was to launch consulting surface and gradually start building the dialogue with the business. And we wanted to get them connected, get them to communicate for the sake of solving mutual issues. And I guess that we managed to do that. At the regional level, the Russian ARI is on the right way, because we have a lot of things included into the documents described by the legal framework. I guess the next impulse will be the international regional level. As Mr. Shamrai said, we want to avoid harsh regulatory system and excessive pressure from the side of the government. We want to introduce this healthy practice of the regulatory policy, and we will launch it firstly in experimental mode. After that, we will scale this across to other regions.
Или те, которые заявляли, что они вот гильотину пилотируют, мне кажется, Тюменская область говорила.
And I guess that Chechen region as well as other 3 to 4 regions are ready to introduce this policy as a pilot project in the next year or in 2024.
Представление регуляторного блока не знаю, но
Unfortunately, I don't know the detailed roadmap, but I'm ready to give regions time to figure out how to build this complicated expertise project.
и ОРВ друг другу на региональном уровне помогают.
Because I want the ARI to work in alignment with the processes happening in the region.
Жизнь совершенно
And I guess it will give the new momentum to the processes in the region.
свежую кровь. И
And it's important to refresh the situation time after time.
не все заинтересованы, но это вот
I guess that there will be some opposition in these processes,
чиновники
but
довольны.
it's fine if somebody is not pleased because we can easily justify the importance of these rules through consulting.
Подарком, который привез Минэк, я надеюсь, среди них и есть
And I hope that the gift that you are sparing include a plan of working with expenses.
оценки нагрузки на
I want you to assess the steps of analysis of state expenses.
грустно слушают истории про экспериментальные режимы, про
And I really want you to understand why we are conducting these experiments and pilot projects.
Башкортостан совершенно согласен, я понимаю, что
And I hope that in Bashkortostan I will find advocates and allies of our approach. As I said before, we should calculate the expenses that the state bears in order to implement their function. And a lot of authorities agree that it is something that has to be done.
чиновники федеральные, региональные,
It is
муниципальные
believed that federal and other authorities have unlimited resources and have unlimited budgets, and they have a very non-intense life, which is actually not true. And we need to expose this fact. So I think we will gradually introduce these calculations and these assessments within governmental authorities.
воздействия на
And it will make it clear that these tools are developed not only to influence business, but also to keep things running, to establish jobs, or maybe we will find another way around and we will decrease the load on the public figures.
увеличиваете,
You
но
must have seen
бизнесе
the current requirements,
для дела, а не для выполнения бесконечных.
and I really want the public figures to work rather than just stick to instructions and guidelines. So this is what I think about the prospects of the regulatory policy in Russia. And I believe that the regulatory policy is one of the few industries that includes a free communication where business can freely reach out to the government and express their ideas and get the feedback. And addressing the business, you need to prove your judgment, and
Будет на федеральном уровне.
I guess that in order to be heard, you need to provide a reasonable point of view. And I guess Mr. Nazarov knows what approach we prefer, and we know that we faithfully treat both businesses and public figures.
Сейчас уже сделал многое, чтобы появилось
And I guess a lot of things have already been done to establish a clear procedure for usage of the regulatory policy. Thank you very much.
до конца.
Unfortunately, I won't be able to stay with you by the end of the mission because I have a lecture in the Higher School of Economics. I am actually giving a lecture on the regulatory policy, so I hope that the moderator will forgive me this. And they know that even though I cannot stay by the end, our department is still always by your side. If you have any question, please send them to me and I will answer them ASAP.
Thank you for your very great message and very productive words. You have mentioned a lot of interesting information. Unfortunately, Daniil Tsigankov has to leave. If you have any questions, please. I would like to say thank you. I understand that I just say thank you, but it is not just thank you. When at first I watched the expert, when I have a look at the profession, I was so surprised. But now I realize that that you are the person who works under it professionally, and I'm impressed on your work. And when you have finished your speech, in order to say that businessmen and government policy should regulate their work, you are my hero, and I hope that my colleague would hear your speech too. But anyway, we do our best to do the work properly, as we see that it has the result. I will give a short example of this to say that the work you do is productive. And speaking of different acts that was adopted at the end of the year concerning alcohol sales, as regions can vote and they choose healthy lifestyles, and sometimes they have the right to prohibit selling the alcohol. So when we had such acts adopting, and we were confused because, of course, people can choose this way, but we have businesses, and so discussing this with the authorities and with the business, with the communities, local communities, we have decided that this prohibition on the regulatory impact assessment stage, we have decided to implement this act, to adopt it in the regions where we do not have a lot of people living, as business wasn't against it, and sometimes businesses supported these acts. And speaking of different other areas where the beer was in the stores, and we understand that it is something that moves the sales. And we have found a compromise, and thank you to our government who agreed with our position, with our opinion. So this law was adopted only in the region where the business did not suffer, and we were able to protect the business in other regions. So, and local governments promised to deliver the message that businesses are important and they need protection. So, and we have found the compromise, and this is all due to regulatory impact assessment. And we do understand how important it is, and this balance depends on the delivering the message to the government. And thank you very much for your message and for your support. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Daniil Tsigankov mentioned that the Republic of Bashkortostan was one of the first regions to adopt the regulatory policy, and
Путь пройден. В каком состоянии сейчас?
the long way has been passed, and what are we planning to implement in the Republic? Thank you very much.
Только я.
I feel that I am the only person speaking, and I will say briefly. So in order to my previous gratitudes, that was not only gratitude, but I also confirmed that we are having effective work, and due to the negative experience, when we thought that when we thought negatively about the authorities, and we didn't have the connection, but now we control businesses, but we say thank you to all the businesses we have, because
Не то, что
we can cooperate, and
повышают качество
they
Башкортостана. Вот тот пример, который я привела,
they improve the quality of assessments in the Republic of Bashkortostan.
потому что, в принципе, под лозунгом «трезвое село» мы
And
и,
I
соответственно,
believe that
считать, что когда
thinking that
проголосовать,
I rem-
нет, у нас не будет такой торговли, но при этом у этого
so speaking about this regulatory act concerning alcohol, it was very difficult to discuss this topic, and the regulatory policy does not refer to what exactly should be mentioned, and
говорить нельзя.
we cannot speak about the full legitimacy, but this is why this policy is so important, and this is why we have been able to find this compromise. So speaking about the past, all the regulatory acts did not
Мало того, законодатель
weren't adopted, and I would like to say thank you to all the authorities who make our way, and it was hard at first, and
постановления
we thought that it was only concerning some federal level, but now we realize that it's not. And speaking about the Republic of Bashkortostan, this Institute of Regulatory Policy is productive, and we are improving it more and more. And thank you very much.
нам одним
I am so grateful, because without you it would be so hard for us to understand what the business need and how to find the balance between the government and the businesses. So thank you.
И вам спасибо, Зульфия.
Thank you too, Zulfiya Gumirova. And among the participants, we have other regions
Внедрение тех или иных регуляторных
who also implement some institutes of regulatory policy, and also the Novosibirsk region. I would like to give the floor to Olga Moskvina, who is the head of the Department of Public Administration Improvement of the Ministry of Economic Development of the Novosibirsk region. As
регионе. И
she is going to speak about the RIA in Novosibirsk, and we would speak about the RIA
таковые. Ольга Владимировна.
and the requirements.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues and everyone who is present here. I know that many regions joined this program, and there are representatives of business associations, so I'll try to be most productive and most useful for you and for you who participate in this event. And I want to express my gratitude to organizers of this event for having me here. There is 4 basic requirements for us.
Да, я буду говорить следующий слайд, и все, почему-то не переключился кнопка.
Can we have the next slide, please? Okay. we have 4 basic conditions for making a beneficial conditions for business.
Третье – диалог.
It's dialogue,
Процедура.
and that the procedures are simple and easy to follow.
Требования. Формирование этих условий – это раз. Второе
So
– в области. И
we'll try to share the practices we have developed in Novosibirsk region
третье – решать их.
and come to agreement together. The first condition
Первое условие благоприятности бизнес-среды в части ОРВ – это обоснованность принятия решения. Если разработчик не доказал через индикатор
certainty
проблему,
in making decisions.
и что предлагаемый акт решит эту проблему, акта быть не может. У нас есть примеры, когда
Have the examples when Novosibirsk region adopted the act, but we couldn't adopt the act
не доказал проблему. Все.
because it didn't prove that the problem exists,
Доказывали о том,
and we need to prove that there is the problem.
и бывает, когда после
And there are situations when, after giving this
приведу 2 примера. У нас
giving this opportunity, we cannot adopt the act.
иностранное
For a few years, we do not have the right to
помимо федеральных запретов, региональных нет.
to employ people,
Видов
and we
документа.
we do not have this act for 5 years already. So the Ministry of Transport regulates us in what sphere. So, and it has decided to prohibit to the deliverers the custom transport to deliver goods from one place to another more than one time, and there wasn't a problem, so they couldn't adopt the act. The next thing is the certainty
Она заключается, в чем она выражается?
in making decisions.
Необходимо
The second thing is to prove that the expenses are possible. If no, we cannot regulate it.
процедуру нормативный правовой проект акта. Мы должны смотреть.
We should take a look at
Вернее, утверждение этого обязательного требования уменьшит
these requirements in order to decrease.
еще будущая процедура в чем-то, да? Что обязательные требования фактически
So the obligatory requirements have decreased the expenses.
практическую плоскость.
We made it in practice. We created a new report for obligatory requirements. This report is good for a few reasons, because each requirement is fulfilled through the actions that they should do, the entrepreneur should do in order to implement this requirement. So, and it shows all the necessary aspects.
в этой сфере работающих предпринимателей. Таким образом, мы можем
This is how we can take a look at the sphere and the expenses
благодаря
that may be decreased due to these requirements. It is quite difficult, but still you can take a look at this form. And now we have developed the methodological recommendations for the authorities, and they will work using this one.
я скажу, да.
Uh,
Сводные отчеты у нас их 3 формы разные.
the reports have 3 forms, and
Так вы знаете, это обязательное требование. Я просто экономлю время, у меня 9 минут регламент.
obligatory requirements
И есть
are. I'm short of time, so this is why I'm trying to speak faster.
но очень часто разработчики, они раз и подтянут свое что-то. И вот
So the IT specialists can just
нормальное, и мы это дело сопоставляем. И тоже вылавливаем то, что они уже знают, что мы выловим, поэтому уже,
And
если по упрощенной форме. Следующее, что
the next thing,
мы очень активно
we actively forming the summary
по формальным признакам ничего не
reports.
доказал, проблем не доказал, индикатор
If the problem is not justified, there's no indicators,
возвращаем тут же.
okay, we return it.
10 дней по содержанию.
And 10 days when it comes to its contents, if everything is full but the content,
Дальше.
it lacks the content, we give it back to.
Мы
When we do the assessment
воздействия, ну вот в отличие,
of
мы заложили под каждый акт проходящий оценку применения, потому что, ну вот, чтобы максимально
so we can
отработанными у нас.
test the tools that we have.
Что же в озвученном блоке является, на наш взгляд,
And to our opinion, which is not fully regulated, and which help do we need to do that?
что касается
As for the protection of naturally protected objects, they are not. We still have them,
проходить оценку применения,
and they have to be assessed.
требования
And one of the requirements,
экспертизы. В заключениях устанавливается
they need to be tested
для конкретных территорий или объектов, в зависимости от названных этих сфер. Вот. Еще и с органом федеральным регулятором согласование проходит. Нужно было бы, на наш взгляд,
So
другие способы. Мы тоже
we think that there are
414
we should change 414 federal law, 217 federal law
либо просим
to exclude some objects from these federal laws, and maybe to prepare
федеральными регуляторами
it with federal regulators that these spheres are specific, but still we would like to decide something in this question.
Второе условие
The second condition, next slide please, of the favorability of the regulating environment is the minimization of expenses. During ARI, when the costs of the business are not justified, then the prohibition for entrepreneurs are excessive. Moreover, if the problem in the sphere can be solved at lower cost for the business and the regulator is more expensive method, but more expensive for business, I mean.
мы считаем, что
We believe
возникает на самом деле уже
that
две проблемы.
two problems arise. The first one is that the solution is weak and the problem is not solved, and we have a new problem, which is increased expenses, and we cut the number of business people in this field, in this industry, and taxes drop, etc.
И на этом же слайде. Если затраты на
You have similar assessment at this slide.
ущерба
If the solution is more economically effective in comparison to non-regulatory method, then the regulatory method should be chosen.
в сводных отчетах они должны рассчитывать.
So it is important to introduce method of calculation of regulatory solutions.
Второе, мы сами стараемся.
Secondly, we are doing our best to prepare reports and calculate the expenses that the regulatory solution involves.
Эту бумажку предприниматель принести. Эту бумажку
And we want to cut the paperwork that the businessman has to do. We keep in touch with our colleagues from other authorities, and we are trying to make them meet the business halfway. So
второе.
this is what I wanted to say about the second condition.
В докладе по оценке применения, да, мы тоже
In the report of the application
касалось, но теперь уже
assessment,
было обязательное требование и
I
каким образом
see how the regulation affected the expenses and the losses. Maybe the losses dropped, but also the number of entrepreneurs also dropped in this field. We drew the associated tables and we always publish our regulatory acts to the public use.
можно у нас посмотреть. Не
And whatever is about the regulatory requirement, you may feel free to familiarize yourself with it. All the stages are regulated term-wise. How is it related to the expenses? It is a direct relation because the expertise assessment helps us to figure out how much expenses is going to be borne by the businessman, and the entrepreneurs have time to take a decision, and the associated commissions also may introduce their opinion if the regulation should be applied or not. The next thing,
отраслевые реестры предпринимателей.
we maintain industry-based registers of entrepreneurs, and we enter records of the entrepreneurs that we helped because we know that they will be more eager to communicate with us later on.
Вместе мы делаем. Мы создали ведомство.
We've created working groups that assesses that impact of the regulation because we don't want to bear this on our own shoulders, so we involved vice governors and they will do the assessment and we will facilitate that assessment.
Здесь еще скажу, что да,
I would like to say that under these conditions it is important to maintain a dialogue. It is important to explain the requirements, to have them explained. I want them to connect on, I want them to explain the consequences. And it's easy to arrange supervision. It's important to give definitions of
условия.
the most typical violations. Also, the regulatory system should be transparent and understandable.
Условия понятности два основных аспекта.
Clarity for us is that the procedure is clear, and we heard this today. The assessment should be clear, and the documents adopted should be clear.
Предпринимателями. Первое, с чего начинаем, всегда простым нормальным языком.
Because if we want to get things running, we need to explain in simple words, put it simple and keep it short and simple for the common people because they need to understand what is the role of this document is and what it brings and what consequences it may draw.
Еще делаем.
What do we do? In 2015, we introduced a quarter-wise assessment of the regulatory environment. We monitor the dynamics of changes introduced into the legal acts that we drew reports on and conducted expertise on. We are checking if the terms are maintained, if the procedure is maintained. And this stimulates entrepreneurs because they see how the legal framework is being improved in one field and in other field and then third industry.
На публичные консультации мы размещаем.
After adjustments, we publish the legal document that has already passed the expertise. After this procedure, the legal framework may change drastically. And we really want to make sure that the clauses that we discuss with you will be the clauses that will be introduced in the final wording of the document. And moreover, we maintain the history of changes and you can familiarize yourself with the previous versions. It's transparent, the procedure is totally clear. In 2023, we are planning to finish working on this electronic democracy, and we will equip this register with all the lawful references. Also, we have a feedback service to improve our operation.
И у нас на сайте есть
At our website, you can find a tab where you will find the structured information about the regulatory authorities that impose obligatory conditions.
сложно. Регуляторы за это у нас отвечают в соответствии с
And the website has hyperlinks to the relevant authorities.
не до конца отрегулировано
What should be added to this point?
установленных
I mean,
разрешительных режимов.
the
Разреш-
documents that outline local or localized special regimes.
участки и так
I mean, this includes layout of premises. Local requirements cannot be prior or cannot be prioritized in comparison to the federal ones.
либо
We
разъяснить
wanted to make it clear. We wanted to make sure that there is no ambiguity allowed.
большая часть все-таки мы все понимаем обязательных требований.
And the most of requirements, as we all understand, has been approved by the federal authority. And we have a huge experience
Либо нашему федеральному профильному
thanks to our Department of Industries.
федеральных обязательных требований, которые
For 2 years, we've been drawing a set of documents.
развития
We
выше
reached out to the Ministry of Economic Development. We reached out to the Committee for
работаем.
Regulatory Legislation.
Дорожный проект карты разработали
And together, we are developing roadmaps,
по чуть-чуть, но
moving forward step by step. In November 2022, we sent a new set of documents relating to the trading relations. I would like to mention our writers and our archive keepers because I'm enjoying how clear the categorization is.
обязательные требования, обоснование
And for example, if you need to find any regulatory document, it will be easy for you to do, even though there are more than 800 requirements in it.
сейчас обращаясь к регионам.
If I address the regions right now, including authorities and enterprises, if we send this, and on Monday we will touch base, we will publish a table on Telegram maybe, and maybe regions will also share the statistics.
Но срок будет короткий.
But the term will be very short. It will be 3 weeks the longest.
В довесок
We need to publish information that was gathered not very long time before.
У нас такие активные сферы. Я привела медицина, торговля. Мы еще
And we need to focus on the most active industries like medicine or pharmaceutics. Well, contact your entrepreneurs and ask them what is the most popular business here, because we will enter these industries into the register and it will facilitate their integration. I guess that they will be interested to take part in such a thing because the most regulatory policy is introduced at the federal level. The register is a very handy
торговли
It's a
конкретно.
very handy tool because you can simultaneously share a link to the post or to the register. This is my offer. This is my suggestion. Thank you.
Правда помогаете.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to the Ministry of Economic Development and Investment Policy. I'm happy to hear that the register is available for usage right now practically. and I'm returning your gratitude for not being restricted by frames of original procedures, but you go beyond that. I guess that you won't fit in within this narrow framework.
Впервые мы приняли участие
I remember when for the first time we took part in the meeting of the expert council, and it's our second positive experience when the regional business gathers a kit of suggestions
набор тех болей, которые действительно
and they express their pain that they're most relevant for them. And then the colleagues from authorities make a system out of it, categorize them, and then we help our colleagues to bring it to the agenda of the working group.
это, собственно, те люди, которые
And these are people that are involved into these working groups, and they actually consider law bills and then deliver them to the executive and legislative authorities.
и если у них в
They
голове
have these documents approved.
это требование избыточное, это
They realize that some requirements may turn out excessive. According to their experience and practice,
избыточное.
they are trying to avoid any regulatory act that would be excessive load for business. So thank you very much for your contribution.
Числе участников
Also, I would like to mention another participant,
бывает иногда
the
тех,
representative of another region that
делать регион,
wants to go beyond the region, and that's why they're so active at the federal level.
в части хороших новостей,
I would like to share good news with you.
подарка, да. У нас в скором времени
Very soon,
внесены изменения в
we
414
will enter the changes into the 414 federal law, and it will be a significant change because we will exclude the obligatory assessment of the regulatory impact of decrees that are subject to cancellation. And the obligation under this clause will be cancelled.
для всех вас, да, и
It's a
довольно
huge pain
уделять время тому, чему, собственно, как
for
показывает
you
несообразно, да, то есть это просто непроизводительное.
because we don't want to waste your time and your resources. Also, we're going to introduce a set of changes that you should find helpful.
Принятие решений, да, соответственно, когда
Some changes take prompt decision making, and sometimes it's impossible to make these prompt decisions. Nevertheless, such shifts are important because ARI cancelled acts will be no longer imposing any obligations. I would like to give the floor to Natalia Belozorova to tell how Krasnodar region is coping with the ARI.
Краснодарский край у нас
Krasnodar region is historically one of the most
активных.
active regions and prompt regions.
Скажите, как
So, Ms. Belozorova, can you please share the situation?
Thank you. I would like to support the trend given here. At first, I would like to thank my colleagues from the Republic of Bashkortostan for this warm meeting, and this is the important session where some authorities and businesses can meet and discuss things.
единиц. Однако перед нами стоит
We have a goal to deliver trends in regulatory policy to the whole region, and I would like to thank my colleagues from the Ministry of the Economic Development of Russia for supporting our decision of changing the 414 federal law.
мы обратились с
We asked to change the regulatory impact in order to exclude normative regulatory acts of obligatory responsibility, because these projects
которые
are
с точки зрения ОРВ оцениваются
concerning these projects are not interesting from the in the context of regulatory impact assessment, and this is just a formality. And this exclusion will help regions to focus on important initiatives, and moreover, one of the important things, especially for the regions, is projects of regulatory acts
в целях реализации
in order to implement federal law concerning military
в соответствии с указом президента 757
regime. We have a middle level of reaction, and we have a federal council, and this is urgent
может привести к негативным
because it can lead to negative consequences in safety, and despite the effectiveness of regulatory assessment,
просто невозможно.
in some ways it is impossible to implement it, and the decisions should be made in hours. And we managed to take this experience from the pandemic, when we had to make decisions promptly and to decide what measures should we take to provide safety for citizens. Now I would like to speak about the assessment of regulatory impact. I believe that this process exists in each region, and I would like to speak about the experience of Krasnodar region. So before the practice, we don't have practice in our region, but we are doing our best to start it. The first necessary thing is regulatory acts, because and we also need the methodology
Также у нас приняты
for this. And in our region, we have a law for obligatory assessments, and we have the committee, including business communities and authorities together. And we also have some amendments in regulatory impact assessment. And now we have assessment of regulatory acts
247 ФЗ и правилам, которые
and to the 242 federal law. And the developments should stick to these regulations when implementing the regulatory policy. We have the difficulty in obligatory requirements, and because in the moment of implementing the project, we could not have the consequences of violating these laws, and I think we should give it as a obligatory rule.
со стороны бизнеса
So on the side of business, and regulatory acts will be useful for you, and I believe that when all the regions will start assessing the impact, this mechanism will be even more useful than the RIA, because you will have the register, and you have the requirements, and they are the most important, and you can choose what you don't need and what is right from this register. And the second thing,
разъяснительная работа
we are explaining
проблемы, которые возникают в нашей работе.
And I would like to speak about the problems we have. So, and the
Им непривычны новые правила их установления, такие как отсрочка вступления в силу, принцип двух окон, сроки действия.
so there are some difficulties
Нашим федеральным коллегам
in implementing the project because we need education for regulator experts in order to show them how this regulatory procedure will work and how to operate with this. When we speak about it in the context of the region, I'm worried that some experts, especially those who don't quite know what is happening, and they can be confused with some things, and we need more control. Maybe we need the direction of development that we would be able to deliver to our experts, and I think it will be useful and productive, and it will improve our work. And with this methodology, we will be able to communicate and to educate experts. And the third thing, some regulatory acts have been already adopted, and we have some acts with
акты у нас,
that are going to be approved,
потому что нужно было принимать их оперативно, и
and
правовая неопределенность или какой-то пробел,
some acts had to be approved promptly. In these cases, we gave them time to
срочную проблему
re-adopt the act,
исправил. Потому что мы понимаем, что
because we realize that global changes do not happen in one day, and we should change trends of regulatory policy step by step. And we have the policy, and we are improving the register of obligatory requirements, and this is in order to inform business and to make it easier for them to see what is forbidden. And this is the starting point for RIA, and we recommended to look at the regulatory acts that have obligatory
в соответствии с 248 ФЗ.
and that are already on the website. And we took part in the pilot project of the Ministry of Economy Development,
Надеюсь, что это
and I hope this topic will continue to improve, and we believe that the register development is a hard work and it will take a few years, but this is very helpful and it helps businesses. Due to analysis of obligatory requirements and the register, we started to look at these requirements and normative acts differently.
даже стали смотреть с той точки зрения,
Now we see
дублирование в них
that some regulatory acts double the requirements, and when it start operating, and these double acts will
ну, вот в процессе проведения
will make it hard to operate with the register. And speaking about the register, we have a lot of questions that I've prepared, but I will not
вот один
ask them all, and one of them is quite fresh. I have the question.
исключительная ситуация.
It's rather an exception, but I'm going to tell you. Who is responsible for entering obligatory requirements into the register when the regulator is the regional authority and the supervisor is the federal authority, because I think this is the regulator, regional regulator that is responsible, because they are imposing this
Он есть только у
requirement. But the access to the registers is the federal supervisor. In our case, the supervisor is the Ministry of
даже у
Emergencies.
да, у нас 85 субъектов Российской Федерации.
And in 85 subjects of regions, we have 85 registers, and the ministry should control all the regional acts and the entrance into the registers. So that looks impossible. Maybe this problem is self-solving, and maybe when we have the things running at the full scale, we will be able to see how the problem disappears by itself. But still, there are some concerns. We still see concerns in the area of lightweight
Ну, и остальные
water vehicles
части можно будет.
and the associated regulatory documents. I hope that we'll still have time to continue our communication beyond the session, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm using this opportunity to congratulate you with the upcoming new year. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Belozorova. We just squeezed within the time frame, and I guess we can spare a few more minutes if some of you have questions. You can feel free to
Вопрос к Новосибирску.
ask them. I have the question to Novosibirsk region. My name is Irina Abramova, and I am the head of the Entrepreneurs Association. And you have an electronic resource, and how does it function? What form does it have? Let me explain that the regulatory electronic resource is the regulated. No, I mean the electronic democracy. The electronic democracy is a constellation resource of Novosibirsk region. We have an anti-corruption expertise happening there. We have different SIM-based blocks,
На том этапе, когда мы завели ОРВ, она уже
and
из жизни
it was already outdated when we introduced ARI, and now we are reviving it in a new form.
Да.
Yeah, I just was impressed by the name electronic democracy. Yeah, this is the authority, local authority unified platform. I must say that from the point of view of business, the procedure is too complicated.
То есть
It's
нам
too complicated. It's hard to get through.
то есть нам очень трудно.
I am a representative of a public association, and sometimes it's hard to understand what is what. Well, I guess from the point of view of business, it is simple indeed. Yeah, I see that it's a. I guess when we have public debates, it's important to squeeze within the time frame.
В принципе, вы должны
Generally, the developer should form the public review, a list of issues for public review.
собственно, регулятор в сфере ОРВ именно
And the regulator of ARI can offer some additional consultations. Yeah, unfortunately, we failed to introduce a project related to the increase of waste handling lobby,
Но это не всегда работает.
but sometimes this procedure doesn't work. Well, I can exclude this situation as an impossible one, but I guess that your best allies are the operators responsible for waste disposal.
Очень плотно сотрудничаем.
Yeah, we have a very close relation to the Ministry of Economy, but still I can see my colleagues from other regions who introduced
ну, она сложная для
Забюрократизирован.
bureaucracy procedure. Can I take a remark?
озвучил, что да,
Mr. Shamrai said
сегодня
that business wants things to be clear.
проведение ОРВ, поэтому очень много
We are authorized to conduct ARI.
сложных для вас, да?
That's why
Сказал Александр Александрович, ключ здесь
things may seem difficult for you, but
есть свод
for any public consultation, we provide a list of remarks and notes. According to the ARI rules, none of the remarks should be left unanswered. The developer should react and respond to every comment. When we draw the justification, the report, we take a look at every note, every commentary. So
занимаем сторону.
we sometimes stick to the opinion of the developer, sometimes we stick to the opinion of the entrepreneur.
Между одной и другой стороной.
So we are
У нас большие
hesitating between the two parties.
лестницы.
Это как сказать, мы очень плотно работаем, у нас есть
We have strong ties with the
победа, когда мы
consulting committee,
такого вот
and it was our small victory when we managed to turn in the legal act related to the increased
поймать.
rates of waste disposal, and it's very important to be able to catch the legal act when it's under public review.
Убеждена, что
I am convinced that
потому что это общий тренд региональное проведение
these public consultations are a standard practice for all the regions.
региональном портале.
We not only publish the document at the regional portal, we also make a personal email send out
ОРВ.
to get them interacted, to get them involved into the ARI. We send letters to
Этот портал.
entrepreneurs and we provide them with a link to the portal.
У нас в Краснодаре
Why is the portal convenient? In Krasnodar region, we have a very typical solution, and this solution was developed by the Ministry of Economic Development and Investment Policy. You cannot publish anything with a gone date. You cannot
возможности.
indicate an extended revision period.
Настали новогодние праздники,
And
ночами не спать, можно
if there are some festive days or days off or official holidays, these days are not accounted in the term of public consultations.
включает в себя
And the list of suggestions should include a clear answer if any certain comment was taken into account or not. And if anything is against the procedure, we will make the developer to answer why they didn't take into account any commentary. Our key principle is to either you explain or accept the commentary.
за исчерпывающий ответ.
Thank you for this full answer. I suggest that at this point our first part of the meeting should be over. We should take a little coffee break, and after that we'll see each other here again within 20 minutes.